Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Artists in Sight, where we spotlight some of the best visual artists in the Kansas City metro area. My name is Brian Vole, and I'm the local arts librarian for Johnson County Library. Our mission for Artists in Sight is to share conversations with artists about their work, their background, and what inspires them. Before we get to our guests, just a note about the growing list of interviews in the Artists in Sight archive, located at jocolibrary.org in the Library on Demand tile in the middle of the page. There you'll find videos with conversations with local artists and a note about our exhibitions program, um, which celebrates the work of local visual artists with artwork available free to the public at most Johnson County Library locations. Please visit jocolibrary.org/events/exhibitions to see a full list of our artists and where they're showing, as well as interviews with each of them. So our guest today on Artists in Sight is Kansas City-based painter Zac Bendrick. Zac was born in San Diego, California, and moved to Kansas City when he was 11. On a whim, he decided to take a painting class in high school. What he didn't expect to find was a new creative outlet that would eventually turn into his passion. Zac uses the nose and eyes as an anchor point for his pieces. With bold strokes of paint and large sections of color, the figures he creates take on a life of their own. The expressive voice of paint and brush help to illuminate the dramatic and emotional themes that are prominent throughout all his artwork. You can see Zac's amazing paintings at the Central Resource Library, which is on 87th Street in Farley, until August 21st. Zac, welcome. It's great to have you on Artists in Sight. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad we could connect. I think it's the first time we've been able to talk face to face. So
I think so,
yeah,
yeah.
it's been a busy summer.
We've got a lot to talk about. There's a lot to dive into in your work. And for the audience, I'm going to push out a selection of your work. And some of these are on display at the Central Resource Library, and some of these are other images from your body of work. The first question I've got for you, Zac, let's start talking about who you are and what is your background as an artist.
Hmm. Who I am and my background. I mean, just to basically give just a quick summary would be, my who I am. I'm just somebody who kind of fell into painting, like you said in your introduction, just tried something out, got out of my comfort zone, and really found something that I am very passionate about and I love doing. Um, my background as an artist, I would have to say, mostly comes from trial and error. Um, well, actually, yeah, no, that's right. Um, I would say a good chunk of what I learned as far as painting goes, I started in abstract, not abstract portraits like you see here on the screen, but more like I started doing the paint pours and figuring out how different brands of paint work. How the peaks hold, how's the viscosity, how do things blend, um, and really just my experience just comes from doing, and that's kind of where I started, and now I've moved into painting the human face, the portraits. Um, so we can talk more about that. But yeah, that's just a quick brief. That's kind of my background. Um,
I know that you're mostly a self-taught artist, and you had mentioned in your bio on your website that you spent more time on athletics than art in college. And So I'm
Hmm.
wondering, what was the pull of art for you during this time?
Um, yeah. So I went to college at Northwest Missouri State up in Maryville, and we, I mean, sorry, I always think of family. I had the opportunity to go to college, do track and field, shot put, hammer, discus, that kind of stuff. But I wanted to pursue like a graphic design degree, just because being creative interested me, and I was like, I could see myself doing this full time. And I took one painting class, which was in oil. I I cannot stand oil. It does not mesh with me at all. I hope to return to it someday, maybe if it becomes
And
cheaper.
why is that? No,
Um,
why
I
not
think
oil?
the way that my brain processes like the paint and how I apply it on the canvas, as you guys can see in the paintings, there's a lot of layers. There's a lot of blending. There's a lot of back and forth. Um, Oil isn't like that for me. It's To me, it's a more slower, methodical process. You really have to plan it out, and if you mix it up too much, I always ended up with gray, like that oil gray. Just and I was like, oh man. So I actually asked the professor who led the class. I said, hey, can I use acrylic? Like, because this is really rough. Um, so I started using acrylic and a palette knife, and I was in my element from there on out for the rest of that class. We did a couple abstracts, we did some figures, and just things that really got me interested in painting outside of the classroom. And honestly, I don't even really remember why I started in the first place. I just started. I don't know if it was just like subconsciously speaking to me or what, but it just started to happen. And I felt really good as I was painting. I was like, wow, this is therapeutic. This is relaxing. It's a puzzle. Um, I think actually my professor, his name is Armin. I think he actually works with, I think, the Haw Contemporary down in KC. I have yet to connect with him, but yeah, just a small world is what I'm finding out.
Who were some of the artists that um, who you looked up to during those early days in college when you were trying to learn your craft?
Um, that's a funny question because I really thought I actually had the opposite thought process. I said to myself, I really don't want to go looking for artists because I know they will influence me subconsciously, and I'll end up with something that wasn't, it wouldn't be like completely mine to myself. So I actually tried to avoid looking up artists, if that makes any sense. Um, yeah, yeah,
That's
kind of strange,
interesting.
right?
That
Yeah.
still the case?
No, no. Now that I kind of broke through, um, I'd say you actually have the first painting here. Let me see if I can push that to the audience. This was actually the first painting that I would say defined my style, from here on out. Um, it was something radically different. I have, some of the key features here. I've got the blue hair, the eyebrows. I'm using the colors that you're familiar with and that you can see in the library. The yellow background. This piece was truly the first one that I said, once I sat back, sat in my chair after I was done, I was like, wow, okay, I this is Zac, and that was my whole problem from before, since I was doing abstract, you know, um, throwing the paint on the canvas, more Pollock style. That's what I thought, and that's what other people thought. Immediately, you think Pollock, throwing paint on a canvas. A lot of people can do it, but to leave your own signature and be like, I painted this, or how you can see the artist's signature throughout the painting. That wasn't happening for me, and with this piece, that really stood out, and that this is like the defining piece of all of my work, is my fingerprint, I guess.
Yeah, and this one is on display at the Central Resource Library.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is the first one that most people see.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering about the process, not only with this one. Like, for example, do you draw things out? Do you keep a sketchbook, and then you use those ideas for your larger works? Or is it, you start with the canvas, and that's, you don't know what you're going to end up with when you start? What's your process with it?
Well, to answer the first question about the sketchbook, I do not have a sketchbook. Um, that it is totally live on the canvas. Um, a couple times I have grabbed like a reference photo, maybe a few minutes before I started painting, just to give me some layout of like the angle of a face, or something in 3/4, something fully half, just that way it's a little bit easier for me to work quicker and to not stop and get caught on smaller details. um, so like for all of my paintings, I will start with kind of an underpainting. I wouldn't really call it an underpainting, or like an underpainting sketch. And I'll take blue paint. I think it's manganese blue. It's just a blue, and I'll use that to do a layout. Draw loosely, and I'm like, okay, I like this. I like where this eye is. I like, and I'll start to work from that out. Because as you know, I don't have one nose. I've got like 3 or 4, 7, you know, 10 eyes, ears, the whole thing. So I work from like a painting sketch on canvas. If I make a mistake on there, I'll own it. I'll keep painting. Uh, that way, everything's permanent. Then from there, I'll start to pick and choose colors. Do I have a color scheme in my head when I start? No. I very much work instinctually, just on the fly. So far I have a very good picker. Um, Sometimes I'll just not look and I'll just grab a color and I'll be like, okay, this is what we're using. And then to build off that, some people ask, well, how do you know when you're done with a color, or how
Mhm.
do you choose like where the greens go, or how do you choose where the pinks are, or the reds, the browns, the grays? I will just paint with a color until I feel fulfilled, um, like a red. I'll be like, wow, I'm really enjoying this red right now. It's really great. I'm in the moment. It's me, it's the canvas. I'm just zoned in. It's just that conversation, and I'll just use it until I say, you know what, that's enough red now or permanently. And so I'll put it down, wash my brush out, and move on to the next color. Some paintings, Brian, I don't even wash my brush out. I'll just carry that color to the next area. As you can see in the painting that you're showing right now, on the left side, you see like the blues, the pinks,
Hmm.
the whites. You know, I didn't really clean my brush for most of that textured work. It just carried out until it ran out and turned into another color. So I very much work on the fly, making decisions as I see fit. You know, just that's just kind of how I do things.
How long does it usually take you to finish a painting from, when you first when you start it until when you feel like you've completed it? How long does it usually take?
Hmm, that that can vary. Um, let's see here. We'll start. Let me grab this piece just real quick. So this painting here, I would say this
Oh
is
yeah.
probably one of my longer paintings. I think from start to finish, between work and the weekends and everything, it took me about a month to get everything together how I liked it and painted it. And I said, there is enough figures, color, the balance. I love it. It's done. About a month. Um, this painting here, that, be perfectly honest with you, one Spotify playlist. I it just happened. It literally
Yeah.
just happened. I mean, I think I finished this. It's about, I think it's 4 feet, 4 feet, 48 inches or so, by 48. I'd have to look it up exactly. But yeah, it just happened in less than a day, and it just was good, and it felt good all the way through. Sometimes it just happens, and that's part of the reason that painting for me is exciting, because I don't quite know where my plan is going to lead me. And it's been really an awesome look at, what drives me, what makes a painting great, what makes a painting, you know, doesn't work,
Yeah.
subpar, what pops, what doesn't pop. That right there gets me excited about art, because in my mind, if I think about it, some of the great artists, name any of them, all they had were a flat canvas or piece of wood to paint on. They had paint and a paintbrush. You and I have the same access to those kind of materials, yet they're the greats that we talk about. It's just there's so many different ways that you can make the paint talk and speak to you. It just it's something that I'll be working on the rest of my life.
I want to talk about, you mentioned the Spotify playlist. And one of the things that strikes me about your work is there is a real sense of musicality. Um, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but um, I know that you've mentioned the fact that you play music while you paint, and I'm wondering if you can uh, speak more to that. How important is music to what you create?
Okay. Yeah, so music for me, I am definitely not one of the people who listens to music 24/7, or you always see me with earbuds. I don't know a lot of music. Um, I rarely listen to music, maybe in the 5 minutes from work to my job. Um, and really, the time that I listen to it is when I paint, when I'm in the studio working. That's pretty much the majority, 90% of my music listening time. And for me, it just is a little more powerful. The music, I get more out of it since I don't listen to it all the time. It'd be like not having caffeine, and then all of a sudden, you're 10 cups of coffee deep, and you're like, well, I'm gonna stay up for a month. It kind of does the same thing for me when I listen to music. I can't listen to it at work because I get too distracted. My mind starts to think of all these ideas. But
And
it
when you say work, what are you
right,
referring to?
I work in the IT field, so
Oh,
completely
okay.
opposite of art. Desk
So,
job. Yeah.
so that is a. Now I'm curious about. All right, so where do these two sides of you come together here? So IT is analytical, problem solving, very, uh, you know,
Yeah.
straightforward, I
Well,
guess, from getting from A to B to C. Maybe it's not. I mean, how do these two worlds come together for you?
I don't think they do. I it's almost like I live two different lives. I'm like, during the day, I'm like doing my job. I'm Zac Bendrick, whatever. Um, and I feel like I can be my true self. The part I'm like, I would love to do, you know, painting full time all the time, travel the world and stuff like that. I feel like I can be that person after my job. Because ultimately, we all have bills to pay, something that we gotta, things we gotta pay off. You got gas prices. Um,
Mhm.
just it's something else that I have interest in, and they just don't overlap super well. I will say, like, the graphic design background and then being familiar with computers has helped me, like, get my website up without asking a whole lot of people. Um, Using Photoshop to make, like, edit the photos so they can print nicer. I guess it helps out in that kind of sense. As far as the painting and the subject matter, they do not cross over.
So it's
Um,
more of a situation where when you are at work, you're thinking about painting, but when you're painting, you're not thinking about
yeah.
being in IT. Um,
Yes.
uh, we touched on music, and you did recommend. You had some recommendations from your other interview that we did with you, and I was wondering if you wanted to say anything about these artists and what they mean to you.
Um, I I don't know if any specific one really means more than the others. It To me, I've gathered all these songs and this playlist that I've kind of just tacked onto for the past couple years. It's more songs that kind of maybe relate to me, or they carry an idea that I'm like, oh yeah, I should remember that. I'd like to listen to this song over and over as I paint this one painting, and just see if that music influences me. Um, but like ABBA, uh, Brandy Carlisle, the Gorillas, they're just very different. I mean, you look at my playlist, you'd be like, why do you have all these? But I mean, I could relate it to all the colors I use on the paintings. You know, you'd never think that, you know, a brown here would look just amazing next to hot pink or like a an orange, or would this gray here look good in the corner? It's just, to me, it's almost like a mental palette. You know, that's, I like that, like a mental palette. The music is my mental palette, and I pull from
And if I may add something here, Zach, and
it. Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge music fan, and what strikes me about your musical your choices here and your art is that the artists that you've chosen are are they are pop artists who know how to construct a really good pop song. And there is, I mean, that doesn't just happen. That work goes into that to make it immediately appealing to, create that hook and that production that goes into how it sounds to the ear. And like the best pop song, um, there it's immediately appealing. It draws you in. And then there's so much going on underneath. And you keep coming back to it. And your work um, does that on a visual level. Like there is that element of when you see one of your pieces, it's like hearing one of these like ABBA songs
Oh yeah.
on the radio or wherever, and you're immediately drawn in, and you want to get closer to it, and you want to immerse yourself, and your work really allows for that immersive uh, experience. So it makes perfect sense to me. These
Oh
the
really? I
music that you listen to.
Well, now I need to go back and look at my playlist and actually analyze it more, because that's a great point you bring up. I For me,
It's there, yeah.
it's, yeah, wow. You just could blew my mind. That's great. But I
Well,
yeah,
that's
to
why I'm
me
here,
it
Zach. Yeah.
this is awesome.
No, and I mean that. And I know that the reaction to your art, from what I've heard, is that there is that sense of, especially when you see it at the library, where you don't expect these really bold, colorful images on the walls, and um, there's that sense of you gotta get closer to it, and you gotta really see what's going on and try to figure it
Hmm.
out, and the experience of doing that is just so energizing. Like, wow, there's so much going on here, but it's very playful and um very like masterly. Like there is that energy there that just for
Yeah,
me as an artist myself, like um,
it's eye
there's
candy.
I
That's what I
pick up
go
on that
for.
energy.
Hmm. Well, I
Yeah.
definitely want people to, for lack of better words, like your eyes. I just want to like scream at your eyes and be like, "Hey, look at the painting." That's why I also love to paint large scale. Um,
Right.
it just is very, to me, more visually interesting. There's more to get wrapped up in as the viewer, and it gives me, as the artist, more room to experiment and grow and add and blend and get really experimental. So a lot of my larger pieces, I definitely have a lot of love for, and some of the ones, they wouldn't fit in the library. I think I think the
Yeah.
You were over at the other show, at the Johnson County Museum. Um, I think one was like 15 feet long or something. I was tired from painting that and hanging it.
And
But you can
transporting
walk.
it too. And
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I actually stretched it at the place. I brought all the materials in. They let me have my room and stretched it, and it just super nice, super nice. And
So what do you have? Sorry.
go
Yeah, go
ahead.
ahead. I was just going to ask what you have going on now. What other projects are you working on currently, and do you have other shows lined up?
At this point, I think everything's kind of calmed down. Um, in the past 6 months, 7 months from shooting this interview, I think I've had like 3 shows, and that it's been very busy. So now for me, I have time to work on ideas that I've kind of constructed in my head, different compositions, different subjects. And for now, I'm just going to keep painting and work on the next project. And the next project I have now is what I'm calling the portrait project. And it is, from my understanding, I'm still figuring it out myself because there's a lot of work to be done. But I would want to, in a perfect world, have hundreds and hundreds of people, submit their portraits, just a picture of themselves, a couple poses, so I can make a multi-face portrait. And I would turn that into a body of work that I would call the portrait project, and just have a collection of people from all walks of life, all different parts of the country, across the world, um, and just really bring all of those people together in one fun way. And what better way than to paint them in my style? I think it'd be really, really special, and to walk up to the walls and see somebody's portrait from California, or Maryland, or New Zealand, or uh, and just to see all of that in one room or in one space would be, I think, really awesome. And I think it would excite a lot of people, and hopefully excite them to start painting, because I think everybody should try painting at least once in their life. It's done a lot for me, and I'd hope it'd do a lot for them if they ever want to try it. So yeah, the portrait project. It's I have a page on my website, and that's just kind of where we're at right now.
Zac, that is a really good note to end on. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you. If you'd
Mm-hmm.
like to learn more about Zac and his work, you can visit his website, zbendrick.art. He's got a bunch of pieces up there that you can see, and he's also on Instagram at Zac Bendrick. My name is Brian Vole, and you can reach me at voleb@jocolibrary.org. And also, for more information on Johnson County Library programs and services, always you can visit jocolibrary.org. Thank you, Zac. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.